Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are wrestling with a text that is, well, it's deceptive.
Hmm.
It starts with this incredibly poetic, almost gentle image, Paisinun Taknatui, which translates to God's living water.
Right.
And if you're just skimming the surface, you hear that, you think, ah, nice, a mountain stream, spiritual refreshment.
Maybe a spa day for the soul,
Exactly.
which is a lovely image, but it's uh, completely wrong for this specific text.
Yeah.
As soon as you actually start reading the source material, you realize that refreshment is way too weak a word. This isn't a spa day. It's more like a genetic rewrite.
It's a structural overhaul.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at a theological text that charts a very specific and honestly, a very rigorous journey. It claims to map out the metamorphosis from a regular human existence,
Right.
transforming into a messiankthos, which means a holy person or saint right here on earth, and then ultimately evolving into a vanmesiankthos.
A heavenly holy being.
Yes.
And that trajectory is really the core of what we're unpacking today. This isn't just a list of, nice things to do to be a better person. The text presents it as a covenant,
A covenant.
a binding promise of transformation.
So we have a lot to cover, and I want to make sure we do this justice. Here is our roadmap. We're going to look at three main things.
Yeah.
First, we need to define what this living water actually is and the mechanism of how it works according to the text. Because it's not magic. The text implies there's a logic to it.
Right, it's cause and effect.
Second, and this is where we are going to spend the most time, we need to look at the receipts,
The proof.
the proof. The text provides a specific diagnostic checklist, 13 distinct characteristics that proves this transformation is actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to warn you, having read through these,
Mm-hmm.
some of them are incredibly intense.
They are high bars to clear. They cover everything from your memory to your deepest private thoughts.
And finally, we'll look at the text's cure for spiritual loneliness. It has this profound insight into the difference between struggling alone versus the power of a unified mind in prayer. It introduces a concept of a council that, well, it frankly changed how I view the whole idea of prayer.
It definitely changes the definition of community.
It really does. So
Yeah.
let's start at the source. The text is very specific about where this water originates. It uses the phrase Kanglaizan,
Yeah, it translates to God's bosom or the very heart of God.
so intimacy.
It's emphasizing
Yeah.
intimacy. The text says, my living water flowing down from my bosom. The argument here is that the water carries the essence of the source. It's not just a tool or a fuel, it's a transfer of nature.
Hmm.
And its stated purpose isn't just to sustain biological life, it's to prepare humans to be reborn as a heavenly tribe.
That's a massive claim. It implies that in our current state, we aren't actually part of that tribe yet.
No.
We need an upgrade.
Precisely. Think of the water as the catalyst for that upgrade. The text outlines a three-phase trajectory. Phase 1 is the earthly application. You drink this water, meaning you accept and internalize the spiritual truth, and it changes your operating system right here, right now,
And you become a messiankthos.
a holy person.
And practically, that results in a life of righteousness.
Mm.
But the text is very clear that physical death isn't the end of the story.
Not at all.
In fact, it treats death more like a graduation ceremony or a door opening.
That's phase 2. The text explicitly says that after the physical body is left behind, the Holy Spirit, the Kasiengto, facilitates the return to God's pleasant kingdom. It's described as a transition of location,
Oh, yeah.
not a termination of consciousness.
Which leads to the ultimate goal, phase 3, becoming a vanmessiankthos.
A heavenly holy being. And this is where the text gets interesting about the why. Usually we ask, why go through all this trouble? Why the rigorous transformation?
Right.
The text frames it as a survival necessity. Yes, it says God gives this water so that humans don't just fade away or perish. We are kikol, changed or transformed, so we can actually survive and thrive in the eternal realm.
It's almost like, okay, imagine you want to live at the bottom of the ocean. You can't just swim down there. The pressure would crush you. You need to be built for it. Or like needing a spacesuit for space.
That is the perfect analogy. If you try to enter that eternal state without the transformation, you aren't equipped for it. You're incompatible with the environment.
I see.
The living water is what rewrites your spiritual DNA to make you compatible with the physics of heaven.
So that brings us to the big question. If I'm a listener and I'm buying into this idea of a necessary upgrade, how do I know it's working? You can't just say, I feel spiritual today.
Feelings are fickle,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I might feel holy in the morning and terrible by lunch.
and the text acknowledges that implicitly. It doesn't ask you to check your feelings. It asks you to check your data. It lists 13 specific signs of change, or Kikil-Nanamtu.
It's a diagnostic tool.
Exactly. If you have drunk the water, these symptoms will appear. It's not a wish list, it's a result list.
Okay, let's walk through these. I want to group them a bit because they touch on different aspects of being human. Let's look at the first group, which seems to be about our relational foundation, how we relate to the tribe.
Signs 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Sign number 1 is fascinating. You never forget your brothers and sisters.
Now, I have to push back on this literally. Does that mean I suddenly have a photographic memory? Because I forget names all the time.
No.
Is this about cognitive recall?
I don't think it's about recalling a phone number. It implies a permanent relational imprint. You cannot forget them in the sense that you cannot become indifferent to them. Their existence is tied to yours. If they are in trouble, you feel it. If they are missing, you feel it. It's the opposite of out of sight, out of mind.
That makes more sense. It's an emotional tether. And sign number 2 connects directly to that. You have the capacity to give blessings.
Because you've received mercy.
Right. The logic seems hydraulic.
That's a good word for it. The text says, because you have received mercy, you become a pipeline. God uses you to dispense blessings.
You're not the source.
You are not the source. God is the source. But if the water is flowing into you, it has to flow out of you. You can't hoard the blessing. If you aren't blessing others, it suggests the intake valve is clogged.
Okay, so that's the foundation.
Yeah.
Now we get into the harder stuff, the section on radical compassion. Signs 3, 4, and 5. This is where I think most people, myself included, would hit a wall.
This is the advanced user section. Sign 3 is the ability to forgive a specific person's sins.
Specific.
Not abstract forgiveness of the world or society, but specifically forgiving the person standing in front of you who hurt you.
And then sign 4 takes it a step further. It says you find sinners lovable.
Lovable, or maybe worthy of deep compassion.
That is incredibly difficult. It doesn't say you tolerate sinners. In our culture, we talk a lot about tolerance. You stay in your lane, I'll stay in mine.
Yeah.
But this implies you look at someone who is messing up. Maybe they're acting terribly, maybe they're dangerous, and instead of judgment or disgust, your primary emotion is love.
It shifts the lens. You stop seeing the sin as the definition of the person. You see the broken human underneath. It's seeing them the way a doctor sees a patient with a disease rather than a judge seeing a criminal. And sign 5 extends that to the physical realm. You feel deep pity for the sick.
So it's about a softening of the heart.
Exactly. The living water dissolves that hard shell of indifference we build up to protect ourselves.
Speaking of protection, sign 6 is wild. It totally inverts the idea of self-preservation.
Sign 6. You bear the burdens and treatment meant for others.
This is the taking the hit sign.
It is. It's the idea of substitution. If someone else deserves punishment, or if someone else is carrying a load that is crushing them, the transformed person steps in and says, I'll carry that. Give it to me.
It sounds almost messianic.
It is explicitly messianic. It's mirroring the behavior of the source of the water. I mean, it's one thing to be nice to your neighbor. It's another to voluntarily take suffering meant for them.
That is a radical break from normal human behavior.
Totally.
Right.
Biologically, we are wired to avoid pain. This text says the transformed person runs toward pain if it saves someone else.
That's heavy. Let's shift gears to the devotional side. Sign 7 talks about worship, but it uses this specific imagery of fruits and flowers.
It does. It says you become a vessel for praise. The imagery of offering oneself with fruits and flowers suggests beauty, fragrance, and intention.
So it's not just mumbling prayers out of obligation.
No, your life becomes a beautiful offering that God uses. It's aesthetic as well as spiritual. Your life should smell good to the people around you, metaphorically speaking.
And this bleeds into the mental game. Signs 8, 10, and 11 are all about where your focus is. This is what I call cognitive restructuring.
That's a good term for it. Sign 8 says you constantly think about other believers and God's word.
Which is a challenge in the age of distraction.
No,
I mean, my default mode is usually worrying about emails or scrolling social media.
Exactly. The text argues that the transformed mind has a new default setting. When you have a spare moment, where does your mind drift?
Yeah.
Does it drift to worry, to entertainment, or does it drift to the tribe and the word? It's about what occupies your idle cycles.
And sign 10 addresses how we view people within that tribe. You treat everyone equally.
Smallest to largest. That's the phrase. No hierarchy. The CEO and the janitor get the exact same amount of goodwill and respect. The water levels the playing field completely.
And sign 11 captures the intensity of this focus.
You use every spare moment to meditate on God's plan. It describes a mind that is obsessed in a healthy way with the divine trajectory. There's no downtime where you disconnect from that reality.
You're always processing your life through that lens.
Constantly.
We're almost through the list. Signs 9 and 12 seem to be about vision and the inner heart.
Sign 9 is really interesting because it's about optimism. It says, you possess a holy faith that visualizes the earth becoming a pleasant place like heaven.
So it's not an escapist theology. You're just sitting around waiting for the world to burn so you can leave.
Quite the opposite. You are envisioning transformation here. You see the potential for heaven on earth. You're projecting that heavenly reality onto your current geography. You're an architect of hope, effectively.
And 12.
12 circles back to compassion, but it locates it in the inmost heart. It's an authenticity check. You can fake being nice. You can fake a smile. But sign 12 says you keep compassion for sinners deep in your core where no one sees.
It's not a show.
It's who you are in the dark.
And finally, number 13. The final seal.
God blesses the person with these changes to prepare them for heavenly status. It's the confirmation that the process is complete. You are now flight ready, so to speak.
Now, I have to pause here because if I'm listening to this list, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I'm thinking, I don't do half of these. I get annoyed at sinners. I worry about myself. It feels impossible. But there was one detail in the text regarding the timeline of this transformation that I found absolutely fascinating. It mentions a specific number. Nitul 3040 Kim.
Yes. 30,000 to 40,000 days.
I did the math on this before the show. 30,000 days is about 82 years. 40,000 days is almost 110 years.
It's a lifetime.
It's a full lifetime.
The text is making a profound point here. It suggests that this transformation, this filling or maturation, often culminates around the span of a full human life.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that spiritual maturity isn't an overnight success story. It's not a weekend seminar.
That's actually really comforting. Because if I look at that list of 13 signs loving sinners, taking abuse for others, and I try to do that all by next Tuesday, I'm going to fail.
You will burn out. The text reframes aging. In our culture, we see aging as a decline. We fade away. We become less useful. This text frames aging as ripening. By the time you hit those 30,000 days, if you've been drinking the water, you aren't deteriorating. You are reaching peak performance. You are finally ready for the next phase.
I love that. It plays a long game. But the text also makes it clear that this isn't a journey you take alone.
Yeah.
You don't just sit in a cave for 30,000 days and get holy.
Yeah.
And this brings us to our third main point, the antidote to despair.
This is critical because transformation is hard, and the text draws a sharp psychological contrast between those who drink the water and those who don't.
Let's talk about the person who doesn't drink.
Yeah.
How does the text describe their mental state?
It describes the isolated soul. Without the water, a person feels they are the only one on earth. There's a specific phrase used, amabekbek in apua kisa. They feel they carry their burdens entirely alone.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. The Atlas complex, the weight of the world on your shoulders, and looking around, you see no one to help.
And the text says this leads to a blocked mind, or lungsimbing. It's a state of logical hopelessness. Because mathematically, if you are alone and the burden is heavier than you are,
There's no solution.
there is no solution. It's a dead end. Despair is the only logical conclusion.
But then you have the connected soul, the person who drinks the water.
Their realization is simple but earth-shattering. God is with us. Not just God is with me, but God is with us. They recognize God's presence in their own life, but crucially, they recognize it in the lives of others too. They realize they are part of a network.
And this network isn't just a coffee group. The text describes prayer in a way that honestly blew my mind. We tend to think of prayer as a solitary act, me talking to the ceiling.
Right.
But the text describes it as a council.
It is a striking, almost cinematic image. The text says when believers pray in unity, lungsim kitwak, meaning hearts or minds in agreement, it triggers a massive consultation.
Yeah.
It lists the attendees, the Father, the Son, angels, and then it gets wild.
Heavenly soldiers.
Family soldiers! Yes. It frames prayer as a tactical meeting. You have the armies of heaven, you have the heavenly saints, those who have already graduated, and the earthly saints. They all discuss together.
That completely changes the feeling of prayer. You aren't begging for help. You're participating in a cosmic strategy session.
You're convening a war room. Exactly.
Wow.
And the text says God steps in to help specifically because the believer admits they cannot trust their own strength. It's that admission of, I can't do this alone, that activates the counsel.
It turns vulnerability into power.
It does.
So practically speaking, the text tells believers to support each other based on this reality. It says we should speak joy to one another.
Yes, speak joy. It's an instruction. When you eat or drink of this spiritual truth, you have a duty to remind the person next to you that God is present.
It's a mutual reinforcement mechanism.
You pull me out of my isolation, and I pull you out of yours.
It's amazing how modern that sounds. We talk about community and mental health all the time now, but here it is in this theological text, framing isolation as a spiritual sickness and community as the cure.
And not just a cure for now, but a rehearsal for eternity. That's the mirror effect the text describes in the conclusion.
Right, let's unpack that. Earthly unity mirrors heavenly unity.
The text promises that if believers share love, compassion, and faith equally on earth, they will be gathered and live equally in God's pleasant kingdom.
So the relationships aren't severed by death?
No, they are preserved. The text implies that the social fabric you weave here is the same fabric you will wear there.
Wow.
It says, as we are equal on earth, we will be equal in the presence of the Father. It gives huge weight to our current relationships. We aren't just killing time until heaven. We are building the social structure of heaven right now.
That really brings it all home. It circles back to those 13 signs. You can't do them in a vacuum.
Yeah.
You can't forgive if you're alone. You can't bear a burden if there's no one else around. The transformation requires other people.
It does. Holiness, according to this text, is inherently social. It's not about retreating to a cave. It's about engaging with the sinner, the sick, and the brother with a radically transformed heart.
They aren't obstacles.
They are the gym equipment. You need the difficult people in your life to practice the transformation.
So what does this all mean for the listener right now? We've covered the living water as a rewriting of our nature. We've gone through the 13 rigorous signs, the receipts of change, and we've looked at the cosmic council of prayer.
I think the main takeaway is to look at that list of 13 signs not as a burden to crush you, but as a roadmap. If you feel resentment, or if you feel isolated, the text is inviting you to drink the living water, to accept that transformative covenant.
Yeah.
It's inviting you to move from the blocked mind of isolation to the unified mind of the heavenly tribe.
And remember that timeline. 30,000 to 40,000 days. Be patient with yourself. If you haven't mastered loving the sinner today, you're still in the process. You're still ripening.
True. But don't wait to start. The text suggests that the deep dive itself, the act of discussing and sharing these truths, is the water flowing.
That's a beautiful thought to end on. The text actually defines this kind of discussion as the living water. So simply by engaging with these ideas, by thinking about them right now,
We are participating in the flow.
we are.
And the question the text leaves us with is, are you drinking it alone, or are you sharing that joy? Because the water is meant to be shared.
That is the challenge for the week. Find someone, share the joy, and maybe, just maybe, try to see the sinner as lovable. It might just change your entire world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.